Assalamu alaikum, dear students. Today our topic is ionization energy. We all know that when an atom loses electron, it becomes a positive ion, and when an atom gains electron, that atom becomes a negative ion. Okay, and we also know that a negative ion is called anion, whereas a positive ion is called cation. Okay, positive ions are called cations, and cations are formed when any atom that has some valence electron, it loses that valence electron and becomes an ion. That ion is called a cation. Okay, in this video, let's focus on positive ions or cations. First, understand what an atom is. An atom is a smallest particle that contains some subatomic particles. There are protons and neutrons inside the nucleus, and electrons are the particles that revolve around the nucleus. Okay, the electrons are keep revolving around the nucleus. Okay, but every atom in the periodic table wants to attain the electronic configuration of the nearest noble gas. For example, we take an example of sodium, whose atomic number is 1 and 11, and sodium has the electronic configuration 1s2, 2s2, 2p6, 3s1, and the nearest noble gas is neon, which has the atomic number 10. So sodium wants to attain or tends to attain the electronic configuration of neon. For this purpose, sodium has to lose its single valence electron. Okay. Now we have a sodium atom in which there are three shells. First shell contain 2 electrons. Second shell contain 8 electrons. And there is also another shell which contain 1 electron. Electrons are always drawn in pairs, and only in pairs. We cannot draw 3 or 5 electrons combined in a group. Electrons must drawn in the form of pairs like this one. So the last valence electron, which is in the valence shell or the third shell. Okay, as we have discussed this earlier, that sodium wants to make the electronic configuration of wants to form the electronic configuration of neon, so sodium has to lose its valence electron. But make it simpler, an electron is revolving in its particular orbit where it has its desired angular momentum, and an electron and an atom is electrically neutral. Then why there is a need to lose that electron? Because sodium has to complete its valence shell. All atoms in the periodic table, all elements in the periodic table need to complete their valence shell. And what does this completion means? They should have a 2 electron configuration if there is first shell, or 8 electron configuration if there is second to seventh shell. Valence shell is second to seventh, means second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. For all these shells, an atom has to attain 8 electronic configuration, and for the first shell, the element or the atom has to complete 2 electrons. Now, sodium, we know that sodium has third shell. So, sodium needs to complete 8 electronic configuration in this third shell. But it is almost impossible to gain 7 electrons from any kind of any one particular orbit or shell. As there is only one electron in valence shell, so 7 electrons are needed. So, for convenience, it is easy for sodium to lose this electron and remove this valence shell. But for the loss of this valence electron, sodium has to provide some extra energy to that electron, because if an electron gets extra amount of energy or excess energy or more than enough energy, so this electron will be able to jump out of the orbit. So in order to lose one electron, sodium needs to have some extra energy, and that extra energy which is required, that amount of energy that is required by any gaseous atom. Okay, one thing more, we are assuming that this atom is isolated and this atom has no atoms around it. Any isolated gaseous atom to lose an electron and become a and become a positive ion. This energy is called this energy is called the ionization energy. The amount of energy that is required by any isolated gaseous atom. Isolated means we assume that the atom that has to lose the electron is isolated, is lonely in the space, and there's no other atoms around this atom. So an isolated gaseous atom, it get or obtain or require energy and gains energy, and that electron which gains extra energy, it will move out of the valence shell and the atom becomes a cation or a positive ion. Okay, now let us take an example of some other element like calcium. Calcium has atomic number 20. Electronic configuration is 1s2, 2s2, 2p6, 3s2, 3p6 and 4s2. And if we make the structure, First shell uh, contain 2 electrons, second shell will contain 8, third shell will also contain 8, and there is another shell which contain the 2 electrons. I have discussed it earlier. Must draw the electrons in the form of pairs and only pairs. You cannot make a triplet or a group of 4. Okay, and as we have discussed it earlier, that calcium has to obtain or attain the 8 electronic configuration in the valence shell, but gaining 6 is very difficult as compared to losing 2. So calcium will lose these 2 electrons of the valence shell, and the remaining ion has 3 shells, in which the valence shell will contain 8 electrons. Must draw electrons in the form of pairs. Also add a charge of +2 on the resulting ion. Why +2? Because calcium atom has lost 2 electrons, and also plus energy, as calcium needs to provide excess energy or extra energy to the valence electrons so that these electrons can easily move out of the shell. In Bohr's atomic model, it has been discussed that when an electron absorbs energy, it jumps away from the nucleus towards some higher orbit, and if an electron is already present in the highest orbit or the valence shell, when it absorbs more energy, what will happen? Definitely it will jump out of the atom. Okay, so simply a concept of ionization energy is the energy that is required by any atom, and that atom must be isolated. We are assuming that an atom is isolated and it has to lose its electron, valence electron. Why has to lose the valence electron? Because that atom has deficiency of more than 4 5 electrons, so it is very difficult to gain these electrons, rather it is easier to lose 1 2 or 3 electrons. Okay, so ionization energy is the amount of energy that is required by any atom to lose its valence electron and becomes a positive ion. Okay, thank you so much. In the next video, we will be discussing the trends of ionization energy in the periodic table. Allah Hafiz.